Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'll call this meeting of the Woodford County Fiscal Court's Committee of the Whole to order. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Squire Taylor.
Here.
Squire Gentry.
Here.
Squire Barnhart.
Here.
Squire Carl.
Here.
Squire Downey.
Here.
Squire Blackburn.
Present.
Squire Gill.
Here.
Squire Brown.
Here.
All right. We're going to begin this meeting off with our employee health benefits presentation. We have Darren Smith with Gallagher, our broker for our employee benefits, formerly Assured Partners. It was purchased by the company Gallagher, and that's the new company. But the Darren on our side, who's been working with us diligently, along with our human resource manager, Teresa Tipton, is the same. And we really appreciate you being here. Mr. Smith, please, if you could.
Judge, I have 11 of these, so I'm not sure I brought it out.
I think you'll be good.
Thank you, sir.
I'll hand those out for the rest. You need one?
No, I've got it.
All right.
It's this and then the options of different contributions.
Excellent. If you mind to turn on your mic there, please.
All right, are we ready to go? Okay. Great. All right, good afternoon. Thanks for having me back. Seems like I see you all about this time every year. As James said, I'm Darren Smith with now Gallagher, and we've had the pleasure of working with the court, I think 6, 7, maybe 7 years. So we've 6. Very good. Very good. So thanks for having me back in. We handle all the benefits for Woodford County except retirement. We don't do anything with retirement. So medical, dental, vision, life, disability, voluntary benefits like critical illness, accident, and the like. We take care of all that. For the new plan year beginning July 1st, no other benefit besides medical is changing in terms of the cost. So we had a no increase renewal from Delta Dental on the dental and vision insurance, no change in life and disability rates from Mutual of Omaha, and nothing changing on the voluntary benefits with Aflac. Medical, we're never that fortunate to get a flat renewal. Well, occasional, but it's a very, very rare thing. We got this renewal, it was on a Wednesday, I think it was April 24th. And each month, I'll look at claims reports on groups that are large enough that we get claim information on. So Woodford County is one of those. We get a claims report each month. We also get a large claim report. I'm not going to get too much in the weeds on that. I'm not sure this is the right forum to do that, but there were some concerning things on the large claim report that concerned us as far as what to expect with the renewal and what the market might look like if we quoted the plan this year. Last year, if you recall, we had a pretty sizable increase. And Anthem Blue Cross Blue Shield made a very strong run at this group last year. We kind of used that quote to negotiate with United Healthcare last year, which I think that left a bad taste in the mouth of the Anthem underwriter. So going into this renewal, knowing that medical trend is running at about 11% this year, meaning that healthcare costs are 11% higher this year than last year, I felt if we could get a single digit or below medical trend renewal, we'd be doing well. Most groups don't do that well. So we got this renewal and it was a little better than 15%. We quickly made a threat. There's a lot of ways to negotiate health insurance renewals. The renewal pretty quickly dropped to 13. We demanded something in single digits by the end of the week. And again, we got this renewal on a Wednesday. By the time we closed up shop Friday afternoon, United Healthcare had offered a 9% renewal. We jumped on that again with my 35-year experience in seeing the claims. Knowing we had 12 claimants over 25,000, that represented about $1 million in cost. Our data analytics team had forecast the top 10 claimants $1.8 million in claims the next 12 months. This was not a good year to go to market, especially if we could get a single-digit rate increase. So I believe you've been given a spreadsheet that shows your all's plan designs as far as having 2 PPO options and 1 high deductible HSA option. That's shown on the left or the middle column with the rates right underneath it as far as employee-only rate, employee spouse, employee child, and family. Then if you move to the far right, that's the revised final renewal from United Healthcare with the exact same benefits and a 9% increase in those premiums of single, employee spouse, employee child, and family. Keeping the benefits the same as we have currently for the employees would be a nice thing. So we didn't come with alternative plans this year. Last year also, if you recall, we raised everybody's deductible by $500 and everybody's out of pocket by $1,000 to help bring down the renewal increase back on July 1st of 2025. So this renewal, no change in benefits and a single-digit rate increase, which again, I believe no increase is ever good news, especially with premiums as high as they are. But with medical trend or medical inflation at 11%, to get a renewal increase below that with what we're seeing on the claim side, that's a very favorable renewal. So that's kind of how we got to what we're looking at for July 1st, 2026. As to the other sheet in that packet, I wanted to share with you just some options that we looked at. When you talk about cost sharing with medical insurance and where dollars might be saved, it's either in plan design where you take on higher deductibles or higher out-of-pockets, or you shift more of the premium from the employer to the employee. So what we did on this spreadsheet, just starting up at the top left and going across the page, the top left is your current year premiums and cost sharing. What the employer contributes each month, what the employee contributes each month, and then in red is what comes out of the employee paycheck twice a month. And then the employer contribution as a percentage and the employee contribution as a percentage. That's your current year 25-26 rates. Now, I wanted to stop there and share something. My firm does a lot of government work. We have over 90 government clients in Kentucky, Indiana, Ohio, and Tennessee. And growing that book, we do a lot of government work, both city and county. I'm not going to share these names, but these are 3 public sector government clients of pretty decent size within a 30-minute drive of ourselves. The first client on their percentage sharing, just to give you some benchmark ideas how you all do versus your competition, for lack of a better word. That group on their buy-up PPO, the employee pays 5% of the premium, and on the dependent, the average is 15%. And you can see on your high PPO, the current contribution, the employee is paying 8%, and roughly 17 to 19% of the dependent premium. On the mid-level PPO for a benchmark, 2% on this client is the single cost, 10% on the dependent, Woodford, again, is competitive on that with the employee paying 4%, a little more of the percent, and roughly 13 to 15% on the dependents. And then on the high deductible HSA plan, my client here pays 0% on the employees for the HSA, just like you all do. And this client, the dependent cost is only 2% on the HSA. You all are averaging 5 to 7% for those dependents on the high deductible. Second client in your neighborhood, on the high PPO, the employee pays 4% of the single cost and 7.5% of the dependent cost. Again, you can see what your all's costs are as a comparison. On the mid-level PPO, this is quite rich what this group does. 0% the employee pays for the mid-level PPO and 3% on dependents. And then on the HSA, on this particular city, they pay all single and dependent costs on the high deductible health plan. And then the last group, this is a little bit closer to Woodford, and y'all actually are a little better than this group. On the HSA, 0% is what the employee pays, 20% on dependents, and then on the PPO, the employee pays 9% and roughly about 30% on dependents. And again, that's three real close proximity public sector clients that I think that gives you an idea how you are doing. You all have a very rich plan, percentage basis, low contributions from employees, but that's kind of the market with public sector. Whether I have public sector groups in Tennessee or how, that's just kind of how it is in the public sector, is that employee benefits are rich. And there's more percentage paying by the employer on groups like this than in the private sector where you have more cost sharing shifted to the employee. Going over these other options that we laid out, option 1 in the middle of the page at the top, that's for the next plan year, and that assumption is that the percentage sharing of charges remains as they do today. So under that concept, Woodford County would be taking on roughly 9% increase of the renewal increase, and employees would be taking on 9% roughly of the increase. So it's a sharing of that overall 9% increase. The dollar sharing actually is more for Woodford County, of course, since you all pay such a heavy percentage of the premium as it is. But under that option, you can see there at the bottom, total plan cost of $2,429,000. Woodford County would pay $2.258. The employee portion would go from the current $157,700 to $170,700. Roughly the same percentage sharing of charges. And by the way, on all these options, the Woodford County cost, that includes what you all contribute to employees' HSA accounts. So for your employees that take the high deductible health plan, which most of your employees do, you all have an extremely generous HSA contribution where single employees are getting $1,800 a year deposited in their HSA to help toward that bigger deductible. Families get up to $35 or so $100 a year. You have a very rich HSA contribution, by the way. But that option 1, again, that would mirror exactly the percentage sharing of the premium and the same HSA contributions that you're doing this year into next year. And you can see how those costs increase for your employees in the red column as far as the deductions. And then at the bottom, that's showing how much additional premium that Woodford County would be taking on versus this year. Option 2 is a little more cost sharing on the employee. Option 2 there at the top right, we would keep the same percentage sharing on single coverage. So folks on the PPO high, the PPO middle, and the HSA plans, that would be the same cost sharing as a percentage basis as current, but on dependents, all dependent coverage employees would pick up 25% of the cost. Okay? You can see on the dependents versus where you're at currently, or even that option 1, how significant of an increase that is. Going that route, Woodford County cost for next plan year would be $2,084,000, about a $4,000 increase to this year. And then the rest of the increase, virtually the entire $191,000 premium increase, would be passed on to the employees. Option 3 at the bottom left is an option where the same dollars that Woodford County is investing in the medical plan goes in all 3 plans when you take into account the HSA contribution. So to the penny, Woodford County would put the same dollars into the single PPO as the single HSA when you count the HSA contribution. The same dollars in the family PPOs as the family HSA when you count the HSA contributions. That too is a pretty significant cost increase for your employees. If you see there at the bottom, Woodford County costs would go to 2147. That's about a $67,000 increase over current. The employee cost share would rise about 124,000 to 281,000 over the course of the year. And then the last option, we just wanted to see if putting 40,000 of the $191,000 increase toward employees, Woodford County picking up a $151,000 increase, and you can see again, any of these changes other than option 1, is pretty significant cost sharing change on your employees as far as the additional burden in terms of what's coming out of their paycheck. And from the percentage sharing, what you all are doing now, I'd say you're competitive, especially when you consider how rich that HSA contribution is for those employees that take advantage of that. So again, those are just some options. We think the single digit, with what we know about claims, is a very good medical renewal. As bad as it is to say a 90% increase is good. And so we wanted to lay out some premium cost sharing options as a way potentially for the county to maybe save some on this $190,000 increase. Any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Smith. I just want to share that, we've had a lot of discussions about health benefits, and it is something that this court, past courts, and even going back to Judge Coyle's courts, have believed in, number 1, good health insurance for our employees, but number 2, also covering spouses and dependents, which really means family. And our employees do this for our community, and ultimately their top priority is their families. And so as a fiscal court, I believe we value taking care of people and their families, especially those who take care of us and do all the work for county government. There has been some discussion about, with the rising cost of health insurance, which we are seeing, which we are experiencing, whether or not we should shift, share, or do other things along with those costs. That is the options that are presented here. So I want to thank Gallagher. I want to specifically thank Darren Smith for his hard work and expertise. He knows our group, he knows our plans as well as anyone, and he's constantly advising us, particularly throughout the beginning of the year as we approach budget. And so this is what we have prepared for you. And Darren and Teresa, our open enrollment date will be June the 4th. June the 4th, we'll be at the Woodford Theater for our open enrollment date, where we will go through our health insurance with our team. So that being said, those being the presentation, let me open the floor for any questions for Mr. Smith regarding the medical insurance, health insurance. But not everyone at once. Are there other questions in general about our plan, about anything that we're proposing here? Then let me ask, is there any, does anybody have a recommendation as to the options that are presented? Squire Blackford.
Is there any options for silver sneakers in this plan still, not for wellness?
Silver sneakers not on a commercial group insurance plan. I see that as part of a Medicare Advantage or Medicare supplement offering that typically includes silver sneakers. We do have a pretty robust wellness built-in program with United Healthcare where employees and spouses can earn up, it's either $300 or $500 a year in dollar rewards from United for doing things like getting a preventative health exam, getting your teeth cleaned, getting a tracker connected, counting steps, things like that. So we do have that. Also on all the Aflac products, which we have a lot of participation in, there's either a 50, some plans up to $100 wellness benefit that they get some kind of preventative screening. They get that each year, whether it's an annual physical or colonoscopy or skin cancer screening. So there's a lot of those ways that folks can get that low-hanging fruit.
Thank you.
Thank you, Squire Blackford. Other questions or comments regarding the presentation of the health plan? Turn on your mic, Squire Carl.
Yes, and option one is what we're currently in now with our employees, where we pay, they don't pay anything, we pay that.
The top left is the current numbers, and then option one would be the same theory in terms of the percentage of premium paid by Woodford County and by the employee.
Okay.
So there would be some increase to the employee, but I think a fair increase. You're both sharing in the renewal increase, which that's okay. I think people, gee, if they don't know already, I mean, this stuff is,
Yeah.
this stuff is crazy expensive. But yes, option one would match your current mechanism of a certain percentage paid by Woodford, a certain percentage paid by the employee, matching what's done now.
But yeah, definitely the option one with the cost share, but keep it like it is and take care of our employees.
Yes.
Yes.
That would be the least burden to your employees. All those other options would be a lot more cost sharing to the employees.
And just so you all know, when our plan is offered to other agencies that choose to enroll their employees on our plan, they have to accept our plan as we have accepted it. There can't be different rules. For example, if another agency had an employee, but they didn't want to cover the dependent, that would not be eligible. You have to take the plan as we approve it. Is that correct?
Correct, right. Yeah, we can't pick and choose based on a satellite agency or anything else as far as we're going to cover spouses here or not cover them over there.
Yes.
And there are some radical things going on with the commercial employer-sponsored health insurance. I have not seen this in our public sector clients, but we are seeing more carve-outs in the private sector where, you know, if a spouse has coverage through an employer or an opportunity, they're not available or they're not eligible for a plan, or just not allowing spouses at all, which I think that's a little bit draconian, but we're certainly not seeing that in our public sector book of business, where groups are offering coverage to employees, legally married spouses, and dependent children up to age 26.
Squire Downey?
Just to, and math may be fuzzy here, but just looking at so we're looking at a 9% increase in the overall plan, and then the employee cost share would actually be just about an 8% increase on from current year to option one. So even just slightly less than what the overall increase is.
Since Woodford County pays so much more of the overall
Yeah.
premium, more than Woodford's increase is a little more than 9, the employees is a little less than 9.
Yeah, got it. Thank you.
And again, I think we've worked really hard to take care of our employees, to preserve really foundational health benefit, one that is a major investment in our employees, but it is also a major benefit. And we've seen where employees, unfortunately, have had to take the need of that, and it's been there for them and their families. And with the cost of health care and the rising costs of everything, having these type of plans ultimately is a big financial benefit to those employees who need it. Other questions or comments? Are we prepared to make a decision? You want to make a motion, Squire Carl?
Yes, I do. Judge, that option 1 and the cost share, keep it the same for our employees, definitely to take care of them. They take care of us. Yeah, absolutely.
There's a motion on the table. Motion and a second. Open up the floor for additional discussion. Seeing none, all those in favor, please vote and signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. That motion carries unanimously. Anything additional or any other questions for Mr. Smith while he's here? Seeing none, we really appreciate it. Darren, thank you for all that you do for our group and our employees. And you're a pleasure to work with, you and your company.
Thank you, Judge.
Thank you. You're more than welcome to be excused. Also, thank you to Teresa Tipton, who manages this on the day-to-day basis for our employees year-round. Yeah. Thank you, Teresa. It's a lot of work. And, you know, again, I mentioned this, but we have other agencies on our plan. We have over 100 employees on the plan. And again, it's, as you can tell from the presentation, the healthcare world out there is expensive, it's inflationary, it's, you know, driving costs. It's hard to understand how folks without aren't able to get a better option. But that being said, we have dispensed with that item. I will note that in the budget, the healthcare line item is at 20%. So all of the employee personnel costs are budgeted at 20%, and we just approved what should represent a 9% renewal, which is built-in budget savings, but also built-in budget buffer to ensure that if folks change plans, if anything else in the personnel line items change, we do have that built in to the budget, as that was our initial anticipation of the increase of the overall plan. So that being said, I want to move into the county budget before we get to 4 o'clock, where we will take up the IRB. So, like the, just as we discussed the health insurance plan, the budget has been a long and hard work throughout this process in getting the budget to where we are today. So I know one of the things, it's really important to talk about where we are financially. And we've had numerous meetings with our finance team. We've gotten information from Moody's, the bond rating agency. We've talked to Compass Municipal. We've talked about our finances and our strength and our position. But the budget that is before you today is one that reflects strong fiscal responsibility. It also represents strategic investment in the future of Woodford County. The reason that we have a strong financial position in this budget is because you, the fiscal court, has conservatively budgeted for some time now. And our team on the second floor has been responsible in our fiscal management. This year, as you all well know, the court received another clean audit for fiscal year 24-25. That marks 7 years in a row with no comments or findings on our audits. There are few public agencies that have that clean of a track record of good financial management. And so when we have this conversation in the budget, in the community, hope that each of you will stand behind the position that this fiscal court manages our finances responsibly, prudently, conservatively. Our auditors, both the state and the private audit firms that we engage, continually praise our internal audit team. The internal audit team was put together when I became judge to make sure that we were watching the day-to-day mechanics of our budgeting and finance. Not only what we were spending our money on, but how we were spending our money. We do procurement trainings with department heads and agencies, the treasurer, the finance officer, our clerk, human resources manager. We go through multiple trainings per year on good audit practice. And the reality is, not all public agencies can say that, but this fiscal court can. By the numbers, the fiscal court has consistently maintained a bank balance of over $12 million, with a balance today of $15.6 million. That's not to say that we don't need to be conservative or we don't need to be prudent, but it represents that we are financially stable and sound. Now, a bank balance is one thing, but as you all know, debt is another. And we have the historically lowest debt the county has ever had. You don't have to take my word for it. You can look at our bond rating. In March, Moody's rated Woodford County Fiscal Court A2, a high quality rating indicating a very low credit risk and a strong, stable financial position. The A2 means that we are projected to maintain a stable balance in the future, and it's one of the highest ratings any public entity, including any county in Kentucky, can achieve. And we haven't achieved it, we've maintained it. The people of Woodford County have also spoken, and you, the fiscal court, have listened. Property taxes are tough to bear in these tough economic times. That's why in this budget we do propose a tax decrease. In order to cut property taxes, however, the court must remain focused on economic development, specifically growing jobs and wages that helps us support our occupational tax base. We deserve the best police, and we have it. EMS, and we have them. Road department, and we have it. First responders, in Woodford County we have the best. But it is through strategic economic development that we can continue to fund them without putting that burden upon our taxpayers. The reality is that over the last several years, as opposed to the first several years of this fiscal court, we've navigated some significant economic headwinds. Inflation is persistent, if not downright outrageous. The continued impact of tariffs and trade wars continues to harm various sectors of our local, state, and national economy. And inflation appears on the rise again. But one of the things that is most concerning is the tremendous rise in gas prices, which does create pressures in this budget. We are working with our department and agencies to create plans if the rate of gas continues to increase as it is. This negative impact will hurt the road department's ability to both get around in gas prices and pave. Paving is a direct result of crude oil prices. The good news is, unlike many small rural communities in Kentucky and in America, although not at the rate it was, our local economy is still growing, thank the good Lord. Through the work of our farmers and small businesses, we are continuing to churn out economic growth instead of decline. But this uncertainty in the economy presents major challenges to farmers and businesses large and small across the county. And it has presented challenges to this budget. But the good news is we've addressed those challenges, and this budget ultimately presents the fiscal court with another large surplus. Now, it would be a much less surplus because of our property tax cut. But it's a testament to our hardworking team and the dedication of looking out for both the taxpayer and our employees that we make major investments. So, with that being said, as the opening of our budget discussion, I'd like to start going through line by line the budget until we can get through all of it. At 4 o'clock, we will stop. We will take up the IRB issue, and then we will continue on from there. Then at 5:30, of course, we will go into our regular meeting of the full fiscal court, and should we not get through the entire budget prior to that, we will take up the budget either at another point in the meeting or following the meeting. But we will get through every line item in this budget today if it's possible. The first reading of the budget, as you all have known since February, scheduled for May 26th. That is a hard deadline. So we will be having the first reading. One of the things that continues to happen between now and the first reading, as you all well know, is that our expenditures change and the amount of money that ultimately passes through the budget to the next fiscal year changes. Other than those changes, any substantive change will have to be voted on by the fiscal court prior to May 26th in order to be included in this budget. And we do have a list of things to possibly be included. Let me ask, we have our finance officer and our treasurer with us to discuss and answer any questions that you may have. Are there any major changes that have happened since the budget was presented that we would like to outline for the fiscal court?
There's a list of budget changes that were handed out today of the changes that have occurred since you all received the budget on May 1st.
Everybody have that?
So the first 8 lines were related to the county attorney's portion of the budget, and those were all related to salary changes that he requested be made. So then that would affect Social Security, retirement, health, life, dental, and workers' comp. And I've shown the difference that it made from the amount to the new amount in the budget that was handed out today. Does anyone have any questions over those?
I think we're good.
Okay. So the next changes were also salary related. So you'll see the next 5 lines were related to the ambulance department. And that decrease is due to adding an open position and removing an existing position. So that changed the Social Security, retirement, health, life, dental, workers' comp for the ambulance budget.
Looks good.
Okay. So the next one is the USDA flood recovery grant purchase of property in the general fund. That's the local match. And that decreased due to an additional expense in our current fiscal year. So we reduced that number in the proposed budget to reflect that expense. The next 5 are related to animal control salary changes. And the decrease was to correct part-time hours and a $2,000 increase in overtime, which also changed the Social Security, retirement, and workers' comp lines in their respective budget.
Good to go.
The next line is the Parks and Recreation Special Capital Projects line item. That decreased due to expenses occurring in this fiscal year, so I reduced that number in the proposed budget to reflect that expense.
Thank you.
The next 2 is for road departments, and it's municipal road aid and county road aid. There is paving going on at the moment, so we use the estimated cost of that paving that would occur in this fiscal year and reduce those 2 figures by those amounts. The next is the KDPI program. That decreased due to additional expenses in our current fiscal year. The next 2 are the USDA flood recovery grant purchase of property accounts for state grants and federal grants. And those decreased due to additional expenses in the current fiscal year. The next one is the BERT funding. When I was keying in the emergency management budget into the master budget spreadsheet, I inadvertently left that figure out. Drew had it in his budget, so I went back and added it into the master budget spreadsheet.
Excellent.
And then the final number is the general reserve for transfer figure, which was altered by these changes. Anyone have any questions?
Anybody have any questions on the reason that the overall spreadsheet would be slightly different? All right. You also have the budget items to review. What we have traditionally done for the fiscal court is to include an include in the budget and an exclude in the budget list. It's kind of a way of, number one, showing things that are large expenditures that may or may not be decisions for this fiscal year. The other way is to identify things that are large expenditures that we may need, but ultimately we need to point out because they were not basically budgeted prior. So for any of these items, well, for the ones that are eligible for inclusion into the budget, we will take those up at some point, but I would have you review, and as we approach the line items where they are relevant, I will draw attention to those. So we'll start out with the budget worksheet that is before you. Make sure you have the most recent version in your top left. It should say May 12th, 2026. All right. So it'll be up on the screen as well. So the first accounts are related to the Judge Executive's office. It's essentially a continuation budget from my office. Are there any questions thereon? Moving over to the County Attorney's office, again, more of a continuation. Are there any questions thereon? The county clerk's office, as you all well know, is approved each calendar year. We've approved the county clerk and the sheriff's office salaries, budgets, but we did update the clerk's salary and the sheriff's salary commensurate with their actual salary. So we moved through the county clerk's and the sheriff's office. Then we move to the coroner's office. Coroner's office is before you. The one thing that I would say is that the coroner's office has increased. It's not the same as it was 4 years ago or even 8 years ago. It has increased. We've afforded more salary funding to the coroner in addition to other items in the coroner's budget. Are there any questions on the coroner's budget? Seeing none, we move on to the fiscal court. You all will see that the 2.7 cost of living adjustment is the increase without, I think we've already discussed this, but the cost of living adjustment for all county employees is 3%. And elected officials have the statutory 2.7%, which was voted upon by this court for the members of the court. We continue to move through the fiscal court line items. Are there any questions on any of these?
I have
Squire
one.
Gill, you're recognized.
Thank you. Line number 120, fiscal court advertising.
Yes.
It's gone up $20,000 in the last 2 years and $15,000 last year. And there's no note to the side of it. Can you explain that?
The cost of advertising has increased. We also consolidated some of the advertising into the fiscal court budget, whereas it had been in other places. But the main reason being is that the cost of advertising has increased.
Advertising just in the Woodford Sun?
Yes, we do have the ability to advertise in other places, but mainly it is the Woodford Sun. Yes, Squire Vernon.
Yeah, Judge, I was just, on that same note, have we increased the size of our advertisements? It looks like they're a little bit bigger in the paper. Is that put some increase in, or is it the same?
You mean the physical size of the
Because
advertisements?
it used to be tiny in the back on our advertisements back in the back that we had to do, the classified part of it, and it looks a little larger. I didn't know if they increased their price or if that increased.
The price of advertising has gone up,
Yeah,
yes.
and I was looking at, I took it to the size of it. I didn't know if we had a choice or not on that, so.
Madam Treasurer?
I know that the size for, when we have to advertise our budget, we have to advertise our audit. Those are full-page ads that we don't have any control of the size. Usually if it is a ad for a bid, it's relatively small. But if it's an ad for, say, the opioid task force or something like that, those are usually larger, at least half-page ads, I think, maybe a quarter page. So it depends on the advertisement. Yes, Woodford awareness.
Just one more question.
Thank you. Squire Gill, you're recognized.
Relating to the ads, like the Young and New Farmers ad, I saw 3 of those in the paper, and they're quarter-page color ads for 3 weeks in a row. Is that all part of this too, or is that under
That would be
Young and New
in this as
Farmers?
well.
It's in here too?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Other questions or comments regarding the fiscal court line items? We continue with our one-stop, and we're seeing a lot more business transacted online, which is what we anticipated, and when we worked to set that up, it's now being used a lot more.
Well, we're required to now.
And we're also required by law to do that. But we got ahead of that, and we are seeing a lot more utilization of online tax payments and those sort of things. So you all will see line item 143. Last number 7150. So that is for property acquisition and affordable housing for our proposed affordable housing program. That'd be able to, for the county to join with the cities and or go it alone to purchase property for potential habitat housing. Also, if there's any additional needs for property acquisition as it relates to our buyout program, that also will be there to help fund that. I don't anticipate that, but that is there. I would entertain a motion to approve that line item in the budget as presented. Motion by Squire Taylor, second by Squire Blackford. Are there any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor, please vote and signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. That motion carries unanimously. We move down to line item 146, fiscal court safety and other equipment. So this is a big item. We have Director Chandler with us, but this is the Meridian Rapid Defense Group quote. which is $424,000 for the mobile barriers, the mobile barrier program. That would be mobile barriers, haulers, cables, connectors, and the additional package, which would include the trailers for those barriers. We put that in the safety line items. So that is currently not in that figure right there. The figure is in the items to exclude or include. What I'll do is I'll let you go through the budget so you can see other things that are discussion points, and then we can return back to that. But Director Chandler could answer any questions that you may have. Squire Gill.
Thank you. Later on in the budget, line 614, there's a CAECO safety grant for $12,500. Would we be able to apply that to this to get that number down when it comes due?
CAECO Safety Grant Program, that's a placeholder. Not every year, but most years, they have a program that looks to reduce workers' comp claims, property claims, and that would probably not qualify as, I don't know that our insurance would apply to a situation where a vehicle is used as a weapon. The barricades judge, if you want me to speak to that, is just a general event safety with the uptick in activities on Court Street and other locations about the county. We got a seed program started with a generous donation from a local business owner, and that's what it would take to do all in. That project could be pieced together. There's potential for cost sharing with the cities and potentially tourism. But that's the big number that we would need to get people collaborating about to see that become a reality.
Thank you, Director Chandler. You might want to hang out there for a minute. Squire Barner?
Yes, sir. Director Chandler, the drop deck trailers, is that like a semi-drop deck trailer, or is that,
No,
explain that a little bit?
It's not quite that large. It's a hydraulic lift trailer. These barricades weigh approximately 800 pounds apiece, and the trailer holds 8 of those barricades plus the support equipment, like the cables that hold them together. We could get by with one, which would be a huge cost savings. But if, for example, if these were out at the county road department and they were needed in Midway, it would take multiple trips, or if you were going multiple directions, one trailer would make that hindrance. It's possible to roll them in the back of an enclosed cargo trailer, but it's dangerous because of how much they weigh.
The road department trailers wouldn't work for this?
Potentially. Yes, we could.
Cost savings?
Yes, it would be a cost savings. We would need some sort of hydraulic lift to get them up. I don't know that we could physically, safely get a couple of strong-armed people to lift them onto one of those trailers.
They weigh what?
They're about 800 pounds apiece, and there's not a good way to pick them up by design.
Skid steer or a backhoe or something?
Potentially, yes. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Director Chandler.
Thank you, Squire Barner. Thank you, Director Chandler. Any other questions on this? Again, we'll come back to that as we go through other options or other line items in the budget. Let me ask this. We are at the end of the fiscal court line items. Are there any questions or comments on any of those? Seeing not, we move on to the PVA statutory contribution. Moving along, we move to the Board of Assessment Appeals line items. Then we move to the Treasurer's Office. And I would just note that line 159 is the overtime for the office. As you all know, we utilize assistant treasurer and payroll officer to do payroll and to collect taxes. So our solution to that problem, which we could probably use an entire new employee, but instead of doing that, we're offering overtime and making do with the current staffing that we have. And they're doing a tremendous job. including with our contracted work. We are collecting a lot of outstanding and delinquent taxes along those lines. Moving through the treasurer's line items, are there any questions or comments on any of those? Seeing none, I think before we get to the elections budget, well, I think we can go ahead and take that up. So clearly the elections is one of the most important things that we do as a fiscal court, is fund our elections. It's actually also an area in the budget that has seen a significant increase in our time, particularly from the last fiscal court to now. But the reasons are that we are much more focused on running the best possible elections, ensuring election security, integrity, and safety, making sure that we have updated equipment that will not fail, and that we have plenty of officers and workers to fund our elections. Just one brief aside, the election redistricting officers on 179 is clearly not an item that we will fund because redistricting has already happened. But if you look across this nation at what people think is good to do for redistricting, and you compare that to what this fiscal court did with an independent redistricting commission based on the data and the neighborhoods in our community, and without the influence of politics and partisanship, we redistricted this county in a fair, even-handed, understandable, and common sense way that every state and our Congress could take note of how it should be done, how I believe the people would want it to be done, and I know the people of Woodford County appreciate that this fiscal court redistricted in an honest and upstanding manner. So let me open the floor for questions on the elections line items. I want to thank our county clerk, Sandy Jones, for all of her hard work on the elections. She works really hard to nail down these line items. She's also very prudent in her expenditure. She tries to keep that pretty reasonable. And so I overall, I think it's a really good election budget. Seeing no further questions on the election budgets, before we get to planning and zoning, we'll stop at line item 189. Put you all a bookmark in there. And we will pause to take up the other item on our agenda, the IRB for Castle and Key. So I'll give you a moment to shift your papers around there. All right. Since our last meeting, there has been a robust discussion of the IRB for Castle and Key taken up at our last meeting. And there's also been conversation between taxing districts, counsel for Castle and Key, Mr. Tim Eifler, and other folks as well. And so I would invite Mr. Eifler and anybody else who'd like to prepare or have, I want the fiscal court to have the opportunity to have questions and discussions on this line item. I'm stuck on the budget, on this IRB. And Mr. County Attorney, do you want to talk a little bit about the procedural changes since our last meeting?
Mr. Eifler has submitted to all of us an amended ordinance, and I'll just talk about the ordinance, and I'll let Mr. Eifler address the other aspects of this. that includes a new section, which is early termination by the issuer. And so this new provision now reads, with Section 4, early termination by the issuer, the bond shall be subject to the issuer's right to terminate on or after 20 years. And he will explain how that new provision came to be. And that new provision calls for some changes in what had been Section 4 bond lease agreement and what had been Section 6 bond purchase agreement. And so he will address that. But I do think this is a substantive change over the ordinance that the fiscal court had a first reading on at their previous meeting. And since that reading did not address this, I think it would be more appropriate for the court, if they approve of this, Judge, to have a supplanting first reading of the ordinance with this new language relative to early termination after 20 years. I just think it's cleaner to do it that way. I realize it sets things back 2 weeks, because if they have the first reading tonight and then they advertise it for the second reading, that second reading would not occur until the June 9th meeting. But I do think procedurally it would be better, if not more proper, to, again, if the court decides to do this, to in effect nullify the previous first reading and have a new first reading of the ordinance tonight with that new provision. But I'll let Mr. Eifler address that, Judge, in the context of addressing that change to the ordinance.
Thank you, Mr. County Attorney. Thank you, Mr. Eifler. Thank you for joining us again.
Thank you for having me. Well, let me begin by thank you for having us back again. I know there's been lots of questions. We've had calls with magistrates and people in the public, emails, lots of interest in this. So I guess what I'm hoping to do today, we certainly want to answer all your questions that have come up. I want to do it in public, on the record, so everybody knows, what's being proposed. Let me begin. Again, I'm Tim Eifler, outside counsel for Castle and Key. With me today, we have Will Arvin, who's president of the distillery, Cassidy Price, who's general counsel, Eric Gregory with the Kentucky Distillers Association, and Charles Kroom, who's the engineering and operations manager. So thank you. Again, if I can't answer the questions, I will rely on them. Two things I wanted to talk about, just to give sort of opening comments. One is about the IRB process. There have been questions kind of raised about, what do these bonds mean to the county? Is there some risk? Why are we borrowing this money? So, keep in mind, there's lots of different types of bonds that the county can issue. There's the general obligation bond where the county borrows money, where it's the true borrower to build something that the county's building, a courthouse, jail, public facility. But in another context, it can act as a conduit, where it basically serves as the issuer for a third party, typically a private party who's borrowing funds. And that's what we're talking about here. So in a revenue bond, they call it a revenue bond because the bonds are backed up by a revenue stream. And so the sole source of repayment on those bonds is whatever that pledged revenue stream would be. So in this context, when these bonds are issued, title to the assets, I call it nominal title because you're basically just holding paper title to the assets. They're leased back to the company. The company is the economic owner. And the lease payments, those rental payments, are pledged to repay the bonds. So the sole source of repayment is the lease payments. If there was a default, county has no obligation to repay. Basically, the remedy is a receiver is appointed to run the facility to generate the money to repay those bonds. So there's no risk to the county. There's no pledge of the county's credit or taxing authority. So again, it's just a conduit. And you say, well, what's the purpose of these? The primary purpose of these bonds is to provide temporary property tax relief. And that relates to the period of time the bonds are outstanding. And so that's kind of the second thing I wanted to address. We had originally proposed a 40-year bond term, and there's been a lot of questions about that. And so in response, we've revised the bond documents to give the county the right to terminate at year 20. So basically, we're talking about 20-year bonds at this point in time. And that's really it for opening comments. I'm happy to judge whatever questions the court might have about the proposal.
Squire Carl, you're recognized.
Yeah, I think, one, what I've been approached with, it's about credit worthiness, and it's about, one, the county has no obligation to this. I think that needs to be stated on record again
Sure.
and again, whether I can look at Alan and go, Alan, is that correct? And the terms, I mean, you know, the tax is deferred there, and it's 20 years is the terms on it. That's
Right.
pretty basic. And I just want to be sure that I'm telling people the correct thing. So again, just on record stated that either that is correct or it's not.
Yes, and that is correct.
Yes, Mr. County Attorney, sir.
Tim, you addressed it, but if you would go into a little more detail when there are statements out there, the county's acquiring, or they're going to be on the hook with Castle and Key because they're going to have title, and explain the nominal title for them, the paper title for them, in terms of what, if anything, that obligates them for.
Nothing. I mean,
Thank you.
the only obligation the county has is at the end of the bond term, the county is obligated to convey title back to Castle and Key in return for a nominal payment, which I can't remember what we put in the documents, but it's usually $10, $100. So the whole point of this is to temporarily park title with the county, but it's paper title because from an income tax standpoint, from a financial accounting standpoint, the assets are treated as owned by the company, and it's a financing, even though it's structured as a lease.
Thank you for clarifying that.
And Mr. George, I forgot to mention or address your comment about a first reading. Obviously, it's whatever the fiscal court desires.
Thank you.
Other questions or comments for Mr. Eifler?
Yes.
Squire Blackford.
Thank you, Judge. You all met with Chief Montgomery. What was that meeting? How did that meeting go? Or has he?
Yes.
I don't know. Was he satisfied with what you all meeting?
So we did have a meeting, but at the first reading meeting, we were directed to work with the fire district to work out a proposal. So at the original meeting, we had basically, our position was the loss of revenue due to the transfer of title when we issued the bonds to the fire protection district's pretty small, talking about $6,000 annually. The growth in the tax will offset that, we believe. Just, if you look at we've gone through the numbers, but, I think the company's paid about $1.5 million in barrel tax over the last 3 years. And just to talk about growth, for the fire district in 2023, the barrel tax that Castle and Key paid to the fire district was about, just rounding to $22,000. That grew by 3 years later, 2025, to $58,000. So there's a net, even with the barrel tax potentially phasing down, the projections have been that it will continue to go up for about 8 to 10 years before it starts to drop off. So what we proposed at the original meeting was the growth in the barrel tax will offset any loss, that small loss we're talking about. They wanted protection from that. So what we basically proposed was an arrangement where every year we would look at that. So if the increase in the barrel tax did not, let's say it was less than what that amount was, we would hold them harmless and make that as a pilot payment. So we proposed that, gave them an example. There was a meeting, I think, by the fire board last week, and they rejected it without a counter proposal.
Right. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Eichler. We appreciate that update. Someone online commented that we increased their property taxes in order to do this. That is not accurate. First of all, we haven't even had the first reading of this. Second of all, this fiscal court has lowered the property tax rate 3 out of the last 4 years, and the current budget, which is the subject of this special meeting and committee of the whole, is proposing an additional property tax rate increase. There are districts that have raised the rate for property tax increases, and the assessments have increased, but the fiscal court has not increased the property tax rate. I just want to make sure that folks understand that for the record. There's also other property tax exemptions that do apply that are not necessarily related to the fiscal court. There is an agriculture exemption to property taxes. There is a homestead exemption for those over 65 and those who are disabled. So there are other exemptions that do happen. Not everybody is required to pay the property tax. There are exemptions. Mr. Eifler, you could continue with your presentation. Other questions or comments?
Yeah, I got one, Judge.
Squire Varner, you're recognized.
Can I ask the county attorney?
Mr. County Attorney, will you yield, sir?
Would you, yes, sir. Would you yield? Do you, with your opinion, our obligation, we do have obligation, we are abating the taxes, our county taxes in this.
Yeah, I mean, that's what it is that the property taxes are being, yes.
Thanks, sir.
That would be a result of this process.
Thank you.
And it would be either 20 or 40 years, yes.
Thank you, Judge.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Gentry, Squire Gentry.
Thank you for fielding all my questions since the last meeting. Could you speak on the schools and their pilot agreement?
Sure. So the way the school, so
Judge, and I apologize for interrupting. Tim, people hear pilot and they don't know what you're talking. Why don't you explain what pilot, even what the acronym stands for and what it is?
Sure. So pilot is a term that refers to payment in lieu of tax. And so with these bond structures, it is not unusual for the issuer, whether it's a county or a city, to require, it's just a matter of contract, but you're basically requiring that because the company is getting an abatement of their tax, that they agree to make some payment stream in lieu of the exempted taxes during the term of the bonds. In Kentucky, historically, those have been really limited to school districts. Most issuers want to hold the school districts harmless. And so it can be done a number of different ways. Since SEEK, which was, 1993, I think it first took effect, it's kind of altered how we look at that a little bit. So in the last 2 bond issues I was in front of this court for, those bond issues related to new barrel warehouses that were going to be built, they were going to be filled, and sort of the discussion was, there's not going to be a pilot per se because the barrel taxes will be the revenue stream. Now, with the schools, we did something a little bit different because they wanted to accelerate that barrel tax revenue. But otherwise, there really wasn't a traditional school district pilot in those. Here, it's different. So in this bond issue, we're not talking about barrel warehouses. We're not talking about brand new barrels generating that other revenue stream. So in this scenario, you typically would look at it some kind of hold harmless for the schools. But what hold harmless means and what we've proposed is we would put the school districts in the same financial spot they would have been in had the bonds not been issued. So the way what that basically means is if you build a project and you put it on the tax rolls, the school district gets your property taxes, but under the SEEK formula, they lose some of their existing funding. The reason for that is the SEEK formula measures school district wealth based on taxable value of property in the district in relation to the number of kids in school. So as you put more property on the tax rolls, they're considered wealthier, the state reduces their annual payment. So you can put that on a spreadsheet. Every school district's a little different, but we did that in Woodford County. And in Woodford County, we've got it's basically a percentage pilot payment that equals the marginal percentage. So if they got $1 of new property tax revenue, yes, they get the revenue, but they lose the state funding. If you do an IRB, it doesn't go on the tax rolls. So you would pay them basically, and they don't lose any state funding. So, let's say they get $1 of property tax revenue, they lose 50 cents of state funding, you would have a 50% pilot to put them in the same spot. So that's what we proposed.
And that's how you came up with the 22%
Correct.
number. Okay. So for my understanding, if the value of the property was increased for the county, even if let's say you all did 25% or 30% instead of the 22%, because of the property value increase being on the books, if that were the case, that would in turn reduce some of the money coming to the school system from the state, essentially from the seat formula.
That's right. And by setting it as a percentage, it basically picks up that change. So if we build a hotel and it grows in value over time, by having it as a percentage, if it grows 100%, that percentage picks up that percentage of the 100% for purposes of calculating the pilot. So basically, the school district is made whole not just on what's there today, but on any increases in value or anything we build and add on to that over the life of the bonds.
Thank you.
Other questions or comments? Barb Gill, you're recognized.
Thank you. Okay, just to clarify, because I've gotten a lot of questions about this, and correct me if I'm wrong, you do industrial revenue bonds for the tax breaks to get their property tax abated. That's the main goal of this.
For this one, yes.
Right, okay. And in this bond, it includes all 5 properties, Castle and Key properties. Everything of Castle and Keys is under the umbrella of this bond. Is that correct? Okay, so the tax breaks are received because of and as long as the county holds title to those properties. Is that correct?
Right.
Okay. Which would be 20 years. So no property tax. Because they had been saying that, they're going to pay some property tax, and the property tax is abated. Is that correct?
The local property tax.
Local,
there is a
right.
state property tax.
Right, but that doesn't affect us.
Yep, exactly.
Right, okay. And also about the pilot agreement, I'm a little confused on that one, and I don't know if it's okay to jump around like this, but it was brought up before. But in the pilot agreement on page 2, in sections 4B and 4C, it says that the proposed pilot agreement to be paid to the schools is 22% of the abated school tax, which is what they would have paid, less any portion of the value of the leasehold interest in the project owned by the city created through or private financing. Is that some kind of standard language and they put city in there by mistake, or is Versailles involved in this?
No, it should be county. I apologize. Okay. I'll fix that.
Okay.
And what that basically means is in the statute that exempts the leasehold from local property tax, it says, except to the extent of the portion of the leasehold created through private financing. So, and we're not going to have that here. We always put that language in there because basically what happens is if you had that portion of the project wouldn't qualify for the exemption. It would go, PVA would pick it up, it would go on the tax rolls, so you'd be paying property tax on it. So we would take that out of the pilot calculation because the school district will get full property taxes on that. But it should be county, not city.
And thank you. And another question I had, as far as the SEEK formula goes, I heard a presentation to the city council not long ago that the portion of, and this, I could be off on this, but the portion of the SEEK formula that the state pays, a few years ago, it was, well, right now it's the county, the local taxpayers are paying like 80%, and the state picks up the 20%. That's the last report I heard on that SEEK formula. Now I'm just wondering, because there again in section 4C it says it's based on the estimated school property tax that would have been paid but for the issuance of the bond, less the estimated reduction in the estimated SEEK fund and the facility support program of Kentucky. Could you just, I know you've gone into this a little bit, could you just explain that? That's section 4C, page 3.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's exactly what we do. So, there's really two things that are going on in the SEEK formula. One is when the state passes the budget, they basically appropriate a certain amount for SEEK, which is based on, in effect, X amount per pupil. Okay. There's a whole bunch of budgeting that goes into it, but what they're trying to do in the budget bill, and I think it's $4,800 a student, the minimum, and it goes up each year over the biennium, but they're saying we will guarantee, and it's called base funding, that every child in Kentucky, whether they're in a wealthy district or in a poor district, is entitled to $4,800 per year to be spent on their education coming from public funds. So they set the amount, and then they say, but how the money is raised is pursuant to a formula. So some of it comes from the state, some of it comes from the school district. The amount the school district has to contribute toward that basically flat amount they've set is the equivalent of what you would raise with a 30-cent property tax rate. So what that means is, let's say the school district has a 60-cent property tax rate. So they levy 60 cents. The money gets paid as property taxes, but half of that amount is the amount that the state, which was currently paying them, reduces, because that's their contribution toward that guaranteed base amount. So that's the first part. So here on the bonds, if the project occurs and it's on the tax rolls, they get the property tax revenue, the school district does, but they have to contribute, in effect meaning they're losing what they're already getting, the equivalent of a 30-cent tax rate from the state. That's the reduction. So that's the first piece of it. The second piece, there's three different components. So there's something called Tier 1. They have these equalized nickels, and then the FSPK nickel is the Facility Support Program of Kentucky, which is basically, these are all funding levels you can raise as a school. And a lot of them typically go toward capital construction costs, but the state will provide matching funds for those. And how much they match, they call it equalization, how much they match is based on your tax assessed value per pupil in your county in relation to 150% of the statewide average. So if your assessment per pupil is less than 150% of the statewide average, which today is, I think it's 1.2 million, then the state will basically kick in, when you levy that amount, your nickel or whatever it is, they will add in money to get you to the same spot of revenue that would have been raised had you been at that assessed level. They call it equalization. So it's just a matching thing based on taxable value of property per pupil. So if you put a project on the tax rolls, you've now increased the taxable value per pupil, and so you reduce the amount of equalization that you would otherwise get. So they start, so we got the base piece and we got the equalization piece. Both those, in effect, reduce the amount of state funding the school gets if the project's on the tax rolls. If you do the IRB, they don't lose any of that funding. So again, the pilot is to get you to that net spot. It makes them whole. You know, they're held harmless.
Could you do a calculation based on those numbers you gave us? Like if, let's just say from 2025, you gave the taxes that the school paid in your documentation that you all say, and I don't need it right this minute, but just to make it clear, if you could do a calculation and base it on the 2025 numbers that we were given and calculate this out and see what the pilot payment would be.
Yes.
And also, it does say in the pilot, in the pilot agreement that if the payment, the pilot payment is made before the discount date of the property tax, like everybody pays their property tax, if you pay it early, you get a certain percentage discount. They also get the discount on the pilot payment.
Right, because it works the exact same way.
Yep.
Additional questions, Sparkill?
No, I don't think so. Not right
Mr.
now.
County Attorney?
Tim, just so, again, the public understands, You're a bond counsel. How long have you done this?
30 years?
Okay, and you've been involved with IRBs going back to when?
25 years ago, probably.
And I know you've done it before with the county, and we've had pilot agreements and so forth, and we haven't had issues. But when the issue is raised, understandably, that an abatement of taxes is less revenue for the county. This obviously is something that Castle and Key is interested in, believes would benefit them. How do you explain the offset for the county in terms of not getting the property taxes versus what the continued functioning of Castle and Key would provide?
Sure.
To offset the loss of those property taxes.
Yeah. So, I mean, it is a benefit to the company. Clearly, we're here today asking for this because it's going to be a temporary savings for the company. But I do have those numbers. Here it is. Okay. So, you know, the schools are the biggest piece of local property tax. So they're being held harmless. They're going to either have there's the state funding piece, and then there's the pilot payment under that. So the schools come out of it. So the total loss, the amount of lost dollars from the immediate issuance of those bonds would be about $30,000. And that breaks down, the county's portion of that is about $8,650. Fire district, $6,098. Library, $7,400. Health district, $2,900. Extension district, $2,300. So the loss in local revenue, $30,289. That's based on 2025 numbers. But on the other side of it, what the county is getting from the company, I got too many pages up here. Here we go. In 2025, when we're talking about barrel tax, net profits tax, occupational license tax on wages, it's about $796,000. So we're asking for a $30,000 reduction. The county is just last year, and these revenues wouldn't be affected, about $796,000. And there's been a pretty massive progression increase in that side of the equation on the distilled spirits tax, and I mentioned that. But again, in 2023, the total local tax payments for barrel tax was about $320,000. It's more than doubled in 2 years. Now in 2025, it was about $726,000. So that's local revenue. So, we're asking for $30,000 abatement temporary for 20 years. That the county and all the local districts are going to get $727,000, and it's going to go up before it starts to go down on that side.
And payroll taxes, correct?
And payroll taxes, yeah.
So I just want to make a note that the clerk informed me that the Facebook feed went live, or went off, is not live, but our YouTube stream is always still on. So we are to go live. You were saying the best part, I think. Let's see. We'll take a brief recess, see if we can figure that out. Yes, Squire Brown.
May I ask something?
Yes.
This might be completely, when do we lose our barrel tax?
When does the barrel tax, when does it go away?
When does it go away?
2043 would be the first year it's not imposed. The current phase down.
So don't,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, let me ask you this. If, what do we do after the barrel tax is over with? What do we get then?
You've got your occupational tax, on both wages and net profits. You've got, hopefully with these projects, there's going to be a lot of other revenues separate and apart from just the company, so it should be a ripple effect.
And Squire Brown, what I was trying to do was to hold off on additional discussion just to check on this feed. So if we could do a brief recess. Also, we have with us Mr. Hoppy Hinton, who would like to talk about the impact to local agriculture producers. So I'm going to let Mr. Hinton also speak. If we could just give me 1 minute to check on this feed. John. All right, we have returned from recess. I'd just like the record to reflect that the Facebook live feed dropped, Madam Clerk, but our YouTube live feed stays the same. And we're back on Facebook, apparently. So, Mr. Eifler, thank you for your time and attention. I would like to recognize Mr. Hoppy Hinton, who has asked to speak on the impact to the agriculture community. If you don't mind to turn on your mic, Mr. Hinton. Thank you, sir.
I appreciate being asked. As old as I'm getting, I'm always appreciative to be asked anything. Alan, what a pleasure. What a pleasure. Always glad to see you. Listen, Hinton Farms operates in Woodford County. We were operating in several places, but primarily our agricultural enterprises, tobacco, cattle, soybeans, wheat, and corn. We do a lot of production. We sell a lot of places. The other day, my granddaughter and I were walking around, and there's a cow in the avenue with a bird on its nose. And we decided that was symbiotic. I can't spell symbiotic, but the bird likes the flies, and the cattle like the flies eaten. The thing that we like to think about here from agriculture and industry is being symbiotic. How do we use and help each other? And one of the things that we have found in Woodford County is the distilling industry has been very, very good because you use agricultural product. We raise agricultural product. Now, we raise a rather special product for corn. It's non-GMO, which is required by several distillers. And we run all of our corn through a special cleaning operation so that it comes off extremely clean for use. Our corn is used by Weisenberger, which is a Scott County. We claim Weisenberger. Woodford Feed uses quite a bit of our corn, but most of our corn ends up in the distilling. And a lot of that goes to Castle and Key. We raise around 100,000 bushels of corn a year in this area. I'm not talking about other places. In this area, Woodford County, we've got a dab operation in Fayette County. But our operation here raises quite a bit of corn. A great deal of that goes to Castle and Key. They are a great customer. Distilling industry is a great customer. It's the example I'm talking about. A little while ago, I was looking at a wheat field. We have a wheat field right behind Kroger. You can see it's a 100-acre wheat field. You can see it. Within less than a half a mile, there's a factory called Another some kind of thing down the way that maybe makes cookies. They use our type of wheat. But we didn't ask, nor do we get any kind of connection between selling our wheat to the cookie factory, which is less than a half a mile away from the wheat field. That's the kind of thing we're talking about in terms of how to make this work together. Agriculture is part of our community. It defines our community. It defines what we do. Castle and Key has been a very good customer of ours. We rent some land from them. If you go down to US 60 towards Frankfort, right on the Franklin County line, there's a farm that they own and we rent. And we've restored that farm back to a productive, beautiful, it was growing up in weeds. We've restored that. If you travel down Midway Road, you'll see in the district, Midway District, 150 acres of corn raised right there on the side of the road. We got soybeans behind it. If you go down 60, we have corn also 170 acres right on 60 going towards Frankfort, and a dab right across the road, in the Midway area again. And we raise some grain in the Forge Mill area. Not Forge Mill, but Scotts Ferry area. So we're involved in agriculture, but the symbiotic aspect of having a partner like Castle and Key is very important. And that's the beauty of what you're doing. Keeping that going, expanding, growing, being part of our community helps the community, and it helps our operation, helps our farm. Hinton Farms has been here for quite a while. In fact, we were farming here before Woodford County was even a county. We were farming here before Woodford, Kentucky was even a state. Our deed to our farm is issued by the state of Virginia. That's how long we've been here. So I'm not sure I'm right or wrong. I know I can't walk very well today, and I'm hobbling, but I'm going back now. We've got to move some farm equipment around. I'm glad to see you all. Hope you all do the right thing. If I can answer any questions, I will, or I will escape.
Shall we have any questions for Mr. Hinton? Seeing none, the escape hatch is open. You are free to go, sir. I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you very, very much. It's an honor to have you here. We appreciate that. So we do have to get back to the budget. I allotted about 30 minutes until we had that live stream mishap. But Squire Gill, did you have additional questions?
I did, just a couple.
Yes, please.
Thank you. I'm sorry to hold you up.
No apology necessary.
Agreement?
Okay.
Okay. Who holds the construction fund? Is the county as a conduit or pass-through? Are any of these funds going to flow through the county, or are they just going from the institution to Castle and Key?
No, the bondholder will be a subsidiary of Castle and Key. So they serve as a servicing agent, basically. For these type of bonds, we don't have to bother with a bank or a institutional trustee. So basically, the mechanisms of when we close the bond, the lease with the county, the revenue stream is directly assigned to the bondholder. So all payments go directly between Castle and Key and that subsidiary. No monies flow through the county at all.
Okay. And then also, sorry. Also, it lists under the lease agreement that there are leases already in effect on 3 of the 5 properties listed. Are these companies that they're leased from part of Castle and Key? It says one's dated 11/1/21 and one's dated 6/1/24. And these are the properties on Versailles Road.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I have to refer to Mr. Arvin
Frankfurt Street.
on
Yeah.
those. Oh,
Yes, those companies are affiliated with Castle and Key.
Okay, they're all the same?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I have a procedural question for the county attorney on the substantive change on the reading portion. If there were to be any changes with the pilot agreement for the fire district, would that be substantive enough, in your opinion, that would need?
Pilot agreement is referenced, but the ordinance is the ordinance.
Okay.
We have to have 2 readings, advertise the second reading, and no, I think we can do that. Again, what's substantive is, I'm sorry. Substantive is like the 20-year opt-out potential. So that's why I suggested that the court do that, have a new first reading. But the ordinance itself makes references, but the ordinance, in my opinion, is standalone document, and a statute that addresses it is standalone. So I just think we're fine if you all choose to have a first reading tonight, even if there's some change to the pilot agreement, to go on with the second reading at the time that it's advertised for.
Thank you.
Squire Varner, sir.
Yes, sir. Could I get answered how many corn suppliers does Castle and Key have right now?
Bill, do you know that?
You all can converse and get that answer back to Mr. Varner. Other questions? Other questions? Squire Taylor, sir?
Now, I guess I'm going to ask a question that is a confirmation question. We have the estimated, there's 100 jobs at Castle and Key. Would, my math tells me that if there's a 1.5% occupational tax rate on wages for us, that would be an average wage of $41,102 of those 100 jobs. Does that sound accurate?
As an average?
Yes.
I would say it's probably above that.
Okay. I just want to make sure everybody knows that these are jobs for people, and we're talking about retention and hopefully maybe some growth in the long run, but I appreciate a conservative approach and not overpromising something that isn't there, but these are jobs in the community.
If I can clarify one thing.
Yes,
on the
please.
record here, the question was brought up last time we were here, and I've seen a lot of questions about it in the social media activity. We do anticipate a handful of jobs to become open in the next few months with our pizza restaurant. We talked about, we've already hired a chef. We went back to our hospitality team. They're going to need probably 3 to 5 jobs filled for that project specifically. There will likely be a few more down the road as well. And then we talked about the hotel. We would estimate probably at this time maybe 20 to 30 jobs with that project. That is a few years down the road, so we don't have obviously positions written out, but that's an estimate at this point. So just wanted to clarify that.
Excellent. Other questions or comments? Seeing none, anybody else want to have a moment or share anything? If not, we'll return to our budget discussion. Tim, you want to close this out before I move us on?
I just want thank you for your time, and it looks like we're going to have some more time to think about it before the second reading. So again, please reach out with questions. We're happy to answer anything you need.
Excellent.
Thank you, Judge, for the opportunity again.
Thank you, and we will take up the vote for the first reading in the committee reports in the fiscal court meeting. Thank you. and you all are more than welcome to be excused. But thank you all for coming and availing yourself to questions on the record. It means a lot. Thank you. All right, we're going to move back into the budget discussion. You all will recall that we were at elections, and we are moving on to the planning and zoning budget. So you all will see in there the planning commission items and their budget. And one of the things that we had the presentation of the planning commission budget before us, and there could be a request from the fiscal court for additional funds. I know there was a discussion about the fees that have changed that could potentially make up the gap for that. That's something to consider and for the fiscal court to continue your due diligence on. The Economic Development Yokohama Project appraisal services, there will be no expenses related to the Yokohama project within this budget due to the bond, should that project proceed as it is slated to proceed. We do have the current contract with MWM Consulting, Mr. Lucas Witt's firm. That is line item 193. We continue our economic development partnership with the Greater Lex Commerce Lexington Cooperative. If you move on down, we have our pavilion project at the Huntertown Community Interpretive Park, our Woodford County Farmers Market revitalization, the pavilion payment, and the land improvements for the Huntertown Community Interpretive Park. So any questions on 189 to 204? Squire Gill, you recognize.
Thank you. On line 202, the Woodford Community Farmers Market, it says over at the side you'll vote to expense that prior to issuing payment. Can you explain that?
So the fiscal court must take an affirmative vote to expense that line item, meaning pay that invoice before we pay it. You have to approve it to be paid.
Okay, thank you.
So everything has to be approved to be paid, but that'll be a standalone motion as we've always done with that item. So, one of the things that that does bring up is the idea that a lot of expenditures in this budget may be line items and they may be itemized within the line item, but due to the nature or amount of the expense, it always has to be approved, whether it's on a bill list or through another avenue. So we'll move on to maintenance. Maintenance is an important line item. Squire Varner, you're recognized, sir.
Judge, would this be the last payment on that farmer's market this year?
This is the third payment, I believe, which is the last required payment, yes. Then the other payments would be up to the fiscal court in future out years. Move on to 205, our maintenance department. So I want to take you all through to, let's see. We have 222. We have a restroom remodel. There's a sewer repiping. The new sidewalks for the back side of the courthouse. These are items that have been identified by our maintenance director as courthouse maintenance renewals and repairs that need to be done. We move on to 224. That item is a new plow truck and salt box for the maintenance department. And one of the things that you all have noticed is we are outfitting our out agencies, not just the road department, with snow removal equipment, which gives us the versatility and flexibility to put people at work removing snow and ice and those sort of things. So it's something that the maintenance director has recommended. Move on to the line item 227. Maintenance other equipment. This is some important equipment requested by the maintenance department. A powered trailer dolly. It is not currently in the budget figure. The portable stage, we're moving forward with that project. Director Johns from GIS has also helped us with that expense. That may be something that actually is expensed in the current budget year. But in the event it is not, it is expensed in the next budget year. Squire Varner, you're recognized.
Judge, can we move back to 225 just for one question, please?
Yeah, I was going to move back to all of them, but you can go ahead and go back there now.
I was just
Sure.
asking what the big increase there, what office equipment there.
The office equipment for maintenance. So that'd be a question for Director Wade, who's not with us at the moment. I'll have you all check into that. We'll get that back to you, Squire Varner. As we move forward with the 7391, last four numbers, which is your 227, line item 227. A forklift is a important piece of equipment that the maintenance department has identified as a budget need that can be included in this budget. The one thing I will say is that Director Wade is not saying that we need all of these things right now. He would love to have as many or as much as he can get, but he does, by including them in the budget, he does anticipate that at some point down the road, these will be expenditures that will be necessary. A mini excavator has been a piece of equipment that could be very, very important and utilized in many different projects that the county's undertaken, and in the event that we need that, we either borrow or rent it. Same for a dingo, stand-by-side bobcat track. That is extremely helpful in tight areas, retention basins, doing work in neighborhoods. I believe some of these items were identified in our repair and renovation of the Roan Road wastewater infrastructure, stormwater infrastructure improvements. We've also done work in Stonegate as well, and they've identified these as equipment that we could potentially benefit from and not have to rent or borrow. And then the last item there in line 250 is the 2 LED light plants. So if you're looking, the yellow means that number is included in the budget, and the white means that it is not currently included in the budget. All right. Want to move on to the other highlighted yellow item, line item 231. In 231, we are talking about the government center renewal and repairs line item, exterior painting, new gutters, and exterior lighting for a total of $35,000. That can be a deferred project, but Director Wade recommends that for this fiscal year. I want to move on to, we can come back to any line item that you'd like. Moving on to line item 235. So, Director Wade has identified the Woodford Youth Soccer Association, WYSA, has requested assistance with their parking lot multiple times. And it is Director Wade and maintenance supervisor, as assistant supervisor Rick Hartley as well, have identified that those type of improvements, milling, gravel, those type of repairs would be temporary, and that a paving would be a more appropriate, longer lasting, long-term improvement, and has recommended that in off-site maintenance budget. The Millville Community Center needs a roof replacement. Director Wade has recommended painting the exterior of the Senior Citizen Center. There are multiple stadium improvements that Director Wade has included in that line item as well. There are multiple park improvements. You all will hear about the proposed BMX area, the proposed model plane airport area, the pond, and the Fairboard electrical. Fairboard electrical improvements are a long overdue, needed upgrade in order to break out electrical services and be better able to serve those areas and account for that usage. There are additional off-site maintenance and repairs that are somewhat standard, but those are the ones itemized in line item 235. Squire Gill, you're recognized.
Thank you. About this $675,000 for off-site maintenance and repairs, the WISA, that's my understanding is that was purchased by the county and the city, and they lease it back to WISA to run it, and they do most of the maintenance on that. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And so I'm not sure why this is in, are they going to pay 50% of the paving for this? And it's not in Parks and Rec budget, or is that separate from Parks and Rec? It's in our off-site maintenance. That's my concern is.
It is separate from it is separate from Parks and Recreation. It can be something that the fiscal court can be presented with a project or a match of the payment amount. It would need to be approved by the fiscal court in order to expend it, but in order to be approved, it must be budgeted, and therefore Director Wade recommended that we budget that.
Okay.
As a public park improvement. I will say that there was some discussion in the initial parks project about doing more at the WISA fields and at other youth recreation and sports areas, but ultimately we decided on the parks project that was agreed upon and is coming to completion. So these types of requests are basic infrastructure requests that could or could not be approved by the fiscal court.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Squire Varner, you're recognized.
Yes, sir. Millville, the roof replacement on the community center.
Yes.
We got a expenses report from them last year when we did budget on their expenses and their take-in and that sort of thing. Can we get that again, Judge?
I'm sure we can.
And also, what's the plan on the pond?
So I'll give you an update on the pond. So during the 2025 April flood, the left portion of the dam failed. And when we brought that project to the court, we said we would only use in-kind work and materials for that. So we have someone looking at the pond reconstruction, and we're going to present what that would take to fix the damage from the flood and move forward with that pond project.
All right. Thank you, Judge.
One more thing on that, Judge.
Yes.
I was at the Conservation District meeting when they discussed this pond, and the geologist said that there are sinkholes underneath that, and even with failure is a high possibility, even with remediation, even if you put a liner in it. So I would ask that you get a geologist to look at this before we put any more time or money into the pond to make sure that it's going to hold.
Thank you, Squire
Thanks.
Gill. I will report to the court if I have not already done that in the past. I have met with the geologists at the Conservation District. We met with them. We went over the exact things that you're talking about. The good news is that what happened with the dam was not a product of the sinkholes that could potentially cause the pond to fail. But we will make sure that all of the information and the things that you're requested will be presented to the court prior to any approval of any funds.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let's see. We're at 5 o'clock for the moment, so let me take a brief recess here. We're going to take a brief recess. We are back from recess. We have returned from recess. All right. So, tracking down Director Wade on your question, Squire Varner. So I'd like to just remind folks that if we're going to include any of these items, they can be done by an affirmative vote of the fiscal court, and they could be done by email approval if there's no objection to doing the same in between now and the first reading. So as we continue on through the maintenance budget, move on to line item 241. You will see that we need a generator for the cooling tower and the heaters and LED lighting replacements at the annex. Additional annex improvements that we are committed to doing to improve that facility. So let me ask, other questions regarding the maintenance budget as we look to get additional information on a couple items?
Judge,
Squire Taylor.
I don't know if this also needs to be for Director Wade or not, but I guess my question is, on these other items for other equipment, do we have any idea of any one or more of these items that have been rented for utilization in the last year?
So we have had the need for a mini excavator probably at least once. Although with the road department, they could have used multiple projects with that. Dingo, I'd say multiple projects. Not as many for the forklift and the trailer dolly. That's one of those items that would, it could be used fairly regularly.
Save some backs.
I would defer, yeah, that's right. And I would defer to Director Wade on that, and we'll check in with him on that.
I mean, my only question on that is, as we try to delineate what would be a priority or what would be the greatest bang for our buck, I'd love to have something to help determine that.
Thank you. So we'll hold those questions for the moment. And as we continue on through the budget, we are at 244, the IT budget. Questions or comments for Director Chandler regarding the IT budget? Everything requested was reproduced in there. Okay, let me direct you all to, this is what Director Raid sent with your budget items, where he graded these A through, looks like C, in importance and priority, if you all recall that document. But I'll have, we'll get it circulated to you. But you do have it. Oh, excuse me. All right, print that top one. All right. IT budget. Questions thereon? There are some significant increases in there.
I just have one, Judge.
Yep, Squire Varner, you're recognized.
The video editing subscription there, or software, is that to edit what videos?
Occasionally, the video from this very room needs to be compressed to fill open records requests. There was a training that was hosted in here earlier this year, and being able to convert that to the necessary format to get it where it needs to go. The video file that this room generates is too big to move around outside the building, so it helps with that. We also use that software for changing the audio recordings on the phone system. So, for example, if the clerk wanted to adjust her greeting and add a menu option, she could come into the office, record that, and we use this software to make those edits.
Thank you, Squire Varner. Other questions or comments about the IT budget? Seeing none, we'll move on to the police items. We have the police contract services and the capital. Director Bailey doing all the work here. Thank you. Move on to the line items.
I have this, it's on mine. I got this.
Yes, and I'm just letting people have it for quick reference. But we do have it available for review. There's been a lot of information, but I do appreciate that you have access on your device there. Line item 256 through 281. You'll notice in particular line item 280, the USD flood recovery grant purchase of local property match. We wanted to make sure that you all had that information. Next item we move on to is the EMS budget. And we do have Director Bailey here for any questions or comments regarding the EMS budget. Any questions thereon? The animal care and control budget. as we move through those line items. Any questions thereon? According to Director Wade, Squire Varner, we believe it is chairs for the community room. We don't have enough chairs for events down there. Those are $125 a piece. Office equipment, iPads, and a new computer for the director. He says his is maxed out. We can get you a more detailed breakdown of that as well. Animal care and control questions. Moving on to recycling and solid waste. Are there any questions thereon?
Judge?
Yes, sir, Squire Varner.
I know we hadn't got the director here tonight to answer, but I can breach his run. But I was just wondering if there's any savings from the burn box on dumpster charges. It looks as though we're not.
That was actually a question I asked when they presented on us, and if I remember correctly, they were saying that conditions were pretty difficult for the burn box to have helped on the savings with all of the.
Yeah. When they brought that to us, though,
yeah.
to purchase the burn
Yeah.
box, there was some savings in there. That's
Yeah.
one of the reasons we were approving.
Yes, sir, and I do believe Director McDaniel or Assistant Director Gerard should be here at our meeting if you have those additional questions. We are encouraging the use of the burn box, particularly after that last storm we had. So, all right. We move on to the Health Department gas. We did raise that in anticipation of the gas increase. They are using that gas, particularly for their mobile clinic. That's reimbursed to the fiscal court, of course. The $15,000 for the dead animal removal is there at the request of the Conservation District. Soil and Water Conservation District's request is in there. I would note an additional $30,000 for the 30,000 Trees Initiative is in that line item as well, as a collaborative project with the Woodford Tree Coalition, which includes the Conservation District, the Ag Extension Office, the Master Gardeners, and the cities in the county. And so we will work with them on that, but it is their total budget request plus an additional $30,000. Moving on to line item 386. That is the Woodford Rural Land Program. That is for the purchase of development rights. This is a initiative recommended by Squire Lyles Taylor. So Squire Taylor, if you want to give a brief summary of how you anticipate that line item would operate.
Well, much like PDR is funded in Lexington, Fayette County, that's part of, you got to have funds to have the purchase of development rights. And we have a rural land board, and we have had one for some time, but we have not funded it to be able to empower them to have any kind of programming for that kind of purpose. I don't want to get too far ahead of the rural land board because they're the ones that will actually need to be expending those funds, but ultimately it's funding something that we've had on the books for a very long time.
And you would also anticipate that would probably be a match program as they do in other areas, and that the goal would be to preserve and save farmland.
Yeah, and I think particularly at this funding level, whether it be an opportunity to have some carryover in the long run for them to amass more funds, or for them to really emphasize maybe smaller farms, and that preservation could be a pretty effective utilization of this funding level. But again, that'll be their discretion.
Questions on that? Squire Gill, you recognized?
Yeah, when we give appropriations to other, agencies or whatever, they'll usually come here and make a request. For as little as like the NAACP came and gave us a nice letter and requested $2,000. We haven't gotten anything from the Rural Land Board. I'm just wondering, and can we afford this? We've got a lot of big expenses this year in the budget. I mean, we've got a lot of fixed and increasing costs, like personnel. That goes up every year quite a bit, and we've got a lot of other expenses. I'm just wondering, is this, throwing this in here now, I don't know. I wonder about this. No one came and requested it. We just put it in there.
Judge, if I would say one, I believe that Judge, the involvement of the community and high interest of participation in our adoption of the text amendment really demonstrated a significant interest in this community for farmland preservation. I think that this is something that is not an outside entity fund. This is a board that is established by the Woodford County Fiscal Court and our ordinances that we just simply have not prioritized in the past. I think that, again, Judge, I would imagine we would be a part of any process of the actual expenditure of those funds. Again, this is just the budget, as you mentioned, to a previous line item issue. But I think that this is one of those moments of, if you'll build it, they will come, or if you will not build it, we will maybe help fund. And I think that that's an opportunity for us to really deal with the supply side of this issue, the demand that farmers are seeing, the impact, the economic impacts that they're seeing, obviously rising costs. We need to have some economic incentives for them to ensure that our farmland is preserved. And I think it's a value statement for this court, and I think it's an important issue for us to address, and it's something clearly the public has expressed an interest in preservation in this community.
Would you like to make a motion to approve that as an item in the budget?
Yeah, I'll make that motion, Judge.
There's a motion. Well, there's a motion on the table. There's a second. Now you can recognize Squire Varner.
The $250,000, I understand where you're going with that, but my feeling is right now, we need more discussion on what the pressing things on the farm now that farmers need help now. This will benefit some, but not all. And right now, with the pressures under economics and markets and weather and that sort of thing, maybe more discussion about this on another direction, or two directions, this one and another direction, before we go through with all this. So that's just what I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Squire Varner. And I would just note that the appropriation in the budget does not mandate expenditure. It is allotted, it is allocated, it is budgeted, it does not have to be spent. To Squire Gill's point, should the budget, which I disagree with the categorization of spending. I think this budget is very, very sound financially and responsibly. But if there is an issue, and we don't believe that we can fund purchase of property development rights to save farmland, then we don't have to move forward with that program. Otherwise, we would have to get it from the general reserve from transfer, which would be pulling it from the general fund reserves during the budget year, which is a less desirable way to operate. So there is a motion on the table. This does not approve the project. This approves the allocation in the budget. Are there questions or comments? Anything additional? Squire Gill?
No.
No, ma'am. Okay, thank you. All those in favor, please vote and signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay.
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 Let the record reflect that there are 3 nay votes. But the motion carries. and the rural land program allocation is in the budget as presented. We move forward with the what I would consider a very, very important piece of program funding, funding that we've already done this year. And we're talking about the Woodford County Foundation Indigent Relief and Aid. Because of the Indigent Relief and Aid account number being limited to 1,000, we use a different account number. That's why the 390 is empty. We do have the $5,000 additional for Bluegrass Community Action. We have the Senior Center request. We have the CASA contribution. We have the opiate task force funds, which have been used on a Woodford Aware initiative and other initiatives. The legal fees and court fees. We do, to your point, Squire Gill, have the request from the NAACP for program support. We have our cemeteries and memorials maintenance line item. That's a request of the Cemetery Preservation Board. We have the food pantry executive director. We have the general welfare line item. We have the Woodford Wheels program support, the Veterans Commission program support, Mentors and Meals program support, and the Young and New Farmer Assistance Program. So one of the things that I believe is critical in this budget are those additional funding efforts which will help us bridge the gap with those in need. We do need to take up the idea, or the concept of the NAACP program support. The discussion was, in my recollection, and I welcome any additional discussion, that we would look at valid programs offered by the NAACP that could use that support. It would not be a general appropriation or allocation to them, but it would be something that we would go in to support a specific program designed to help those in need. Squire Blackford, you reckon?
Just like the judge, we were, Mary Catherine, treasurer of our NAACP, would speak on this behalf tonight also. But generally, what we want to do, we want to be able to offer some programs to young kids in the community who need to be empowered and need to be mentored in so many ways. Just like Mentors and Meals. We support our young farmers here for sales, and we got a group of young men in the community who are without fathers in the home, and we can do a lot for them in the community for them as young people growing up. So we're going to start a lot of programs and get people in here to speak to them and offer them experiences of traveling and going to places and learning more. Also, we want them to learn how to be community servants and have to do leadership with them also. So that's what we're asking for, requests of money to generate some program like it. Plus, we have a lot of people. I'm an educator and I mentor for a lot of kids, and I know a lot of kids in the community that needs this. We have so many young kids in the community here, African American and white kids I know who live in some of our Section 8 housing who need father figures and men fathers in their life. So that's why we're doing this, yeah. So, and those kind of things change a kid's life. Change the kid's life. So.
And to your point, Squire Blackford, this is the area of the budget where we are trying to serve needs. It's an area that we've increased in the last couple budgets, and I think the need is only going to increase. But I would say with your role in the NAACP, I'd ask you to abstain from any voting on that. But I would, given the conversation, make a motion to approve that in the budget. Motion by Squire Taylor, second by Squire Varner. Are there any questions? Please note Squire Blackford's abstention. All those in favor, please vote and signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. That motion carries. Any other questions on the...
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any other questions on any of those other line items? We do have the additional Bluegrass Community Action Economic Recovery Assistance and the allocation to the Human Rights. The Human Rights Commission have been getting along on a shoestring. They needed some additional support, and we decided to up that support to cover their needs.
Judge,
Supervisor Downey.
Do we anticipate any with the Bluegrass Community Action, with the recovery assistance this year, before the end of the fiscal year?
I will work with it. Yes, I would say the answer is yes.
Okay.
Why
I just wanted to make sure they were taking advantage of what we had budgeted them for this.
Yes, yes, I see what you're saying there, and I have always anticipated that.
Thank you.
Squire.
Thank you, Judge.
Back to 402, the indigent relief, aid, and burials. I'm glad that's in there this year. That's a new one. But and if they just do cremations, that's probably adequate. But if there's some reason they have to do a burial, because they can't, only an immediate family can sign off on a cremation. And if that can't be done, they might have to do a pauper burial. And that the cheapest you can do that is about $4,500. We really need a policy, because in Lexington, they have all the funeral homes in Lexington who take turns handling these. We only have 3 in Versailles, and I don't know if they would be willing to do that or not. But I'm not sure that $6,000 is adequate unless we're willing to, as things come up, to address that and add it.
I appreciate your point. I think that if the fiscal court is approached with the need to transfer into that account due to an extraordinary circumstance, then we can do that. There is the scenario where that becomes, it could become a very, very big line item if we were to do as some other communities do. But at the same time, I think that we've steadily increased that, and we've also been willing and able to respond to any of the extraordinary needs that have presented to us on that front, as far as it concerns indigent burials. Thank you, Squire.
Just thank you. Have we considered talking to Morgan Funeral Home? They are here in the county, but they don't do a lot of business, so maybe work with them some kind of way to just take care of those kind of burials for us.
Yes, I think that's a great idea.
Yeah.
I think that's a great idea. And again, we do have a policy. We have a approval under that policy to come before the court in this next meeting. But I will say, and the clerk knows this, she works on the ground with these different requests. There's a lot of moving parts with them. And particularly when there are GoFundMe pages involved, other fundraising efforts involved, we really try to be the absolute last line of support, because we don't want our program to be misused, if that makes sense. And we do a pretty good job of keeping that in check as far as administrating it. All right, any other question on our assistance programs?
Judge?
Yep, Squire Taylor.
Have we received any requests this year from Woodford Wheels?
Yes.
On there? Okay. I just wanted to make sure they didn't miss the line either, similar to a community action.
Yes, we have. So we are moving on close to the fiscal court hour, or half hour here. So I'll start at Parks and Recreation when we pick this back up towards the end of our fiscal court meeting. So we will continue to be in our work group. That being the case,